All right, official, here we go. Business ready is our topic today. I'll introduce Mary in a minute, but she is our guest speaker, an entrepreneur and part of our URI Parents Council. And then Brian Smith, I just mentioned, is my partner in all this planning for series of events. Quick refresh. So this is our second session. We have 4 events planned. Our first one was with Painted Karma. So the first one was all about ideas, and it was the opportunity to just start the bubbles. Like whenever I think about entrepreneurship, I think about this, for me, this exciting, creative, everything is possible. Let me kind of start thinking about it space. And so Duran and Christy, they are right outside URI Kingston. They have a business called Painted Karma, and they were this great example of risk-taking, which is actually something Mary will talk about. When Christy talks, she always says, like, we jumped all 4 feet in. And they had done testing of their products, but it all started with solving a problem. And when Christy tells the story, she always says, we kind of started a little bit backwards. And I love that because Mary has all this experience working with hundreds of people in startups, and you all have known people or have ideas in your head, and there's not one right way. And I love hearing all the different stories of how people get their beginning. When we were talking about the ideas piece, the other thing we were stressing is there's, once again, so many different types, and this is not every type of business, but it was a great way to start mapping your mind to what's possible. Is it something that I have a product that I am going to put out there in the world, whether intellectual or physical? Was it something that was, I'm going to do the manufacturing and creating, whether it's my own product or somebody else's? Something that has been growing huge is the idea of social media, influencers, whether it's getting money because other people are advertising on your site and you have enough people that are following you, or if it is affiliate sales, that I'm writing or highlighting or marketing something, and every time somebody clicks on that product, I get a kickback. The reselling, I have coworkers who do a lot of this, and that was actually part of Christy and Duran's story of how they started. The service providing, so whether I am actually doing the providing or I'm the middleman. There's a lot of businesses that get started because I'm connecting the individual to the product or service and finding a better way to really enhance that process. And then coaching and consulting. And this was a fun conversation we had because they all can then link into each other. So we were talking about, when we had that session, we had people who were thinking about businesses, but we also had some people who had a business and they were going, gosh, do I want to start a new one, or do I want to build on to what already exists? So when we're thinking, and this is just to kind of get everyone's head in the right space, I was just saying to Mary that I think I love these conversations because I think entrepreneurship can be very intimidating. It can sound so big and so crazy and just too much, but it doesn't have to be. Like, we can talk about what it is that works for you and finding that space in it. I'm going to introduce Mary, but while we're sitting here, what I want you all to do is use that chat feature. Is there something you're coming here with already in mind? So do you already have something that you're doing currently or at the beginning phase of or fully invested in? Or is there something, I'm not there yet, but I keep thinking about this idea. It's something that, sits in my mind. And if you can add those to the chat as we go along, that's going to help Mary be much more specific in the questions we ask. So in the chat, ideas that you have, what industry they might fall in or category, something you are doing. And while you do that, let me introduce Mary. So Mary's coming to us with already 20 plus years of experience in entrepreneurship. She has worked in a variety of industries. And I think this part to me is really interesting because I think as you start thinking about your ideas, Mary has worked in the food industry and had a bakery shop. She has worked in e-commerce and had connecting people with those services virtually in online space. Does consulting right now, used to be the executive director of the Center for Women in Enterprise, which is nonprofit, and then had this whole corporate background to start with. So touching on a lot of different areas. Center for Women in Enterprise is all about entrepreneurship. And it is named Center for Women in Enterprise, but it does serve men and women and any identity. That space is really exciting for somebody who's starting up or somebody who's building. So she was in there helping hundreds of people. And I think that gives us a really good foundation of experience that she's sharing with us today. And then Mary was just talking about picking up her kids at URI. So that URI parent and part of our parent council. So I am going to turn it over to Mary. Mary, thank you so much. Let me really quick read what people have written. So ideas on children's book and civics curriculum development, the user experience research consultancy, landscaping business, manufacturing company and want to expand, so that already exists. Training and facilitation, so communication, leadership, and more as a business. Green tech, carbon capture, renewable. Beekeeping, oh, we have to talk. We just got bees. So beekeeper and wanting to promote products, and then manufacturing of marine and industrial engine mounts and vibration isolation products. Thank you all for sharing. Mary, take us away.
Well, hello, everyone, and good afternoon. I am so excited to be here because I can tell you that entrepreneurship is my passion, and I love speaking and mentoring people. For me, that's truly soul work. It just comes from my heart. So I'm thrilled actually to see, wow, what a diverse group of people we have on some really interesting business ideas and businesses in place. So a little bit about me. I know you saw, I was at the Women's Business Center, which is, that's the Women's Business Center for the state. And what we do there is, I did when I was there, is help people start, build, and grow businesses. So you could come in with just an idea, or you could have been in business for 10 years and you needed to pivot or expand. So we would work with you on that. My past businesses, I left corporate America in 2000, and I had a background in sales, marketing, operations management. And I started, my dream was to have my own bakery. My grandmother, I used to bake with her. So like for me, that's another thing. It just is soul work for me. So I'm going to talk about, working with your passion. And had that for 7 years. I was in Maryland, about 30 miles north of DC. And I was open for breakfast and lunch, made New York style bagels from scratch, artisan breads. We made all of our cream cheese, and did catering. And I eventually became certified as a women-owned business. And we did distribution of our bagels on a wholesale level, actually to a lot of universities. And a great market for me on the catering side was I used to drive down to DC for lunchtime because it was very expensive for people to order food in DC, but because I was a little bit north, my prices were better and I could do a delivery, and that was a really good business for me. Sold that business because my husband's job took us out of state. And when that happened, we were actually moved to Massachusetts, then Connecticut. I did a lot of consulting work. I actually worked for a year in a university running their annual fund. And then ended up in Rhode Island. We were there for 8 years, ended up getting my MBA because I knew that I wanted to teach someday. And that's when I fell into the position at the Women's Business Center at Center for Women in Enterprise. And while there, I met my business partner for my latest venture, which I departed from in December, but it was called Artisans List, and it was an online directory and e-commerce platform for people who love old homes. And we worked with any house that was built before 1960, but we had homes that were built in 1700, and it could be if you were looking for a service vendor to help you with, a historical architect or plumbing. I mean, those are all specialized things. And then the marketplace that we had was for pieces and products for the house. And it's very interesting because Painted Karma was one of our businesses that was on. So you see, it all comes around in this world, especially in Rhode Island. So I tell you that background because I will reference a lot of those things probably as we're going through the presentation. So Audrey, you can go to the next slide.
I will, and I will add in some awesome chat pieces that came too. So for other jobs, artist residency, gallery, facility, hospitality, maybe a creative product, importing fashion, food, and wine, selling family art. So some other awesome additions.
Oh, that's great. Okay, love that. Love this. Okay. So we're going to talk today about really what is entrepreneurship. I know some of you are already entrepreneurs, but what it takes. So the first thing, you really need to be disciplined. You have to be a true master of patience. I can tell you, especially when I was doing the build out of my bakery cafe, a 3-month build out took us 5 months. And you have to go with the flow. You have to stay focused on your goals, and you really have to have gumption to stick with difficult tasks, because stuff comes up and you can't freak out. You just got to be like, okay, how are we going to get through this? What's going to be the next thing? You have to be able to overcome obstacles and discomfort and push yourself to the next thing. And a lot of things that come up in entrepreneurship, there's no book that tells you how to do it. So you're going to be faced with stuff that you have no idea how to do. And that's when you have to be disciplined and realize, I have to get out of my comfort zone and ask someone for help. And that's where resource centers come through. You have to be organized. And I'm telling you, when I think about organization in a business, the first thing that comes to mind is when I first had my bakery, I had all this new equipment coming in and all of the guides of how to use them, the warranties. My mom actually came down and helped me because I had a stack about this high. And I filed them. You have to do all this stuff online. And thank goodness I had that, because as I needed the equipment as we go along, or I needed a book, I knew where it was. The other thing you have to be super organized with are your documents, your bank documents, your attorney documents, your state filing for licenses, your tax documents. I mean, you have to have all that, and you have to be super organized. And the other thing is with your accounting. If you're not an accountant, and I'm not, have someone come in and help you set up like your QuickBooks system or however you're going to get it organized. And then that will help you flow so much. You've got to be perseverant. And that means persisting despite difficulty, or when you have a delay in achieving success. And I mean, I'm going to give you an example. I was ready to open my bakery cafe, and we had a new health inspector come in, and he said, I'm not going to give you approval. And I'm like, why not? And he said to me, your hood's over the ovens. And I had these huge ovens. He said, that's not big enough. And I said, what? I said, it was already signed off. This is all Precon. He said, nope. he said, you won't be opening unless you do this. So I had to go get an HVAC contractor, put in new, whole new piping for the extraction of everything. Was $20,000 because it was custom. Now that I didn't even have the money budgeted because that was my operating money. So long story short, I went and ran and this is one thing I want to tell you about. If you're ever working with a banker, I went and talked to my banker and I said, look, this was just came up. And he's like, oh my goodness, Mary, that was your basic operating cash when you were supposed to open. So he knew of a local fund that was opening. It was called a revolving loan fund for the community. And they were just kicking off. And he said, Mary, application is due in a week. So I applied and guess what? He was on the board and he helped me get my loan. So I say, put things out into the universe and it comes to you, but you really have to be perseverant and you really have to like go, okay, we're still going here. You have to be super honest. You are the face of your business. It's your reputation on the line. And if your clients are going to keep coming back to you and you're going to get the referrals, you've got to be super honest and ethical. Confident, I'm going to tell you, you are the face of your business. You're the one out there pitching. So you really have to have a posture of confidence. When we first opened, I wasn't a franchise. I wasn't Dunkin' Donuts or Panera or anything. No one knew who BB's Bagels and Bread was. So my husband and I had done traffic studies and we were in, it was a residential area, but there were a lot of businesses too within the radius and there was a huge intersection. So the first 2 weeks we went out every morning with basket full of hot bagels, and we would literally walk up and down the cars at the traffic light. I mean, we were crazy. And some people, we'd knock on their windows and we say, here, have a fresh bagel. And we give them a coupon for a cup of coffee to come in. So, but that was because we were confident. We were confident about our product and we were confident ourselves. And we said, okay, we got to go do this. But like, you're the one who has to market yourself when you're an entrepreneur. No one is. So you got to come up with ways of doing that. Adaptable. Oh my gosh, adaptability to me is one of the key things you need in entrepreneurship. And honestly, to be adaptable, your ego needs to be removed from decision making. Okay, it allows you to see things clear from an objective point of view, and you can discern and recognize things much better if you're adaptable. And honestly, that allows you to pivot. And as an entrepreneur, you come to junctures and you're like, this isn't working. So how can I make it better? Or maybe it is working, but you're not getting the results you want. So that's when you have to learn to be adaptable. My second year that I was open in the bakery, there happened to be a global wheat shortage. Who would know? There was a drought. So I got a call from my supplier and he told me that prices for wheat were going up 400%. And I was flipped. I was like, oh my gosh. So fortunately, he had he had owned 8 bakeries. He had a chain. He had sold it previously. And I said, well, what would you do? Let's talk about this. I need someone to talk to. So I said, because I know I'm going to have to raise my prices. And he said, you certainly are. You're going to be going out of business. So I ended up putting up a sign at the cash register. I had a grab and go section, put up thing. I put stuffers in the bags because literally it was a major price increase. Do you know that I only had one customer out of all of my customers mention it to me? And she said, Mary, I just don't know if I can come in and get my fresh dozen of bagels every day because I don't have the cash for it. And I said, I understand, but just so you know, if you call me at 2:00, I'll let you know if I have anything left over, because from 2 to 2:30, we used to put a discount of 50% on anything that was left in the case. So I just told her that so she knew. So she was thrilled also. But so you got to be adaptable, come up with ways to make things work. Risk taking. Okay, if you don't have a little bit of risk in you or a lot, entrepreneurship's not really for you because you're always taking risk. And I have to tell you, it's really important if you have a partner in life that you have a chat with them about going into this business. My husband is not a risk taker, so I'm like the crazy one. Not really, but he always knows that I'm the one who's going to be like pushing the thing. And he really loves his 9-to-5 job, and he's very successful at it, etc. That works perfectly for us. I will tell you, I know this from the data from when I ran the Women's Business Center, it's very stressful on partnerships to open a business. In the food industry, 9 out of 10 marriages end after 3 years just because of the stress. So I always say to people, talk about this risk with whoever it involves in your personal life before you go ahead. You're going to need the support from them on an emotional level, but on a financial level, just know where things are going. Vision. You definitely have to be a visionary if you are an entrepreneur. The vision frames the business. You have to be able to articulate, own it, and drive it, and show everyone the vision of your business. Because I can tell you that if you're meeting with a banker or even an investor, they want to know what your vision is. You're going to have to explain that to them. And then the other thing is being a visionary. It really tempts your innovation. It's great. You come up with new things. I always like to think of the guy who created GoPro, the video camera. He was a surfer. He was trying to figure out, wow, how did this work? Well, he was a visionary. He said, I need something like this. So if you're creating a product, that's where a lot of things come from, because you're just like, wow, this isn't in the marketplace. Maybe we can create this. So I always say it's great that you have that vision, stick to it. And it also, if you're a visionary, it allows you to understand risk, but it also allows you to analyze the benefits that risk will bring. Okay, so that's really key to that. And it really ensures your survival if you're a visionary. Not completely, but it helps, okay? Competitive. You really need to know who your competition is out in the marketplace. So for me, people will be like, oh, well, Mary, there's no other like bakery within a certain radius. No. My competition was Starbucks, anyone who had coffee in the morning, Dunkin' Donuts, McDonald's, anyone who was using their money for breakfast or lunch, for me was competition. I also like people to think about competition this way. I used to work in the travel industry when I was in the corporate world, and I was a a cruise line sales manager for a while in Florida. And my competition was not, yes, it was other cruise lines, but not completely. Part of my competition was Disney World and Universal Studios. People don't think about that. So when you're thinking about being competitive in your competition, I need you to take a whole look at, the market that's out there. So these are just different, the personality traits, and I want you to think if you're in sync with these. Okay, the pros and cons of being an entrepreneur. The pros, it's amazing. You have your independence, you create your own hours. You definitely have to be disciplined, though. That's the last one there. Because if you can't work in the morning, you got to get the work done in the afternoon. Satisfaction, it is so satisfying when you have those wins and you're like, yes, look at what I built, look at what I created. I can tell you that if you start a business or you own a business, you feel amazing because, wow, you took an idea and a concept and you've created something. It's a great satisfaction. The other satisfaction for me was just seeing my customers, that they were happy and they were really liked the product or service that I was giving. Financial rewards, yes, they do come. I will tell anyone starting a business, it takes generally at least 3 years to break even. You may have money coming in, but it can be financially rewarding, absolutely. Your self-esteem goes through the roof. Like I was saying, if you know that you've created something and you're out there and you've done it, kudos to you, good for you. And the discipline. I will tell you that my hours of the bakery were 6 a.m. to 2:30 because my children were little. They were 2 and 3.5 when I opened. So that worked for me. And then they were in school. And then I had the afternoon with them and I would do work in the evening, like the books, etc. Cons, business failure risk. Yes, that happens. I will tell you all, let me give you a little story. When I had my bakery cafe, my husband and I, we talked about what would happen because we got a bank loan. I took out a pretty big loan, a $250,000 loan. Okay. I put up my home as collateral. I'm not saying for everyone to do that. You really have to be you see, I'm a risk taker, but I have my husband's buy-in for that one. But we said we had to think, okay, so we were young, our early 30s. And we said, all right, what happens if we fail? So if we fail, we have to sell the house, take out the equity, pay off the loan, and we'll start over. We're two professionals. We were willing to take that risk, okay? When I had my company Artisans List, which is my e-commerce platform, I had an angel investor. We had our initial investment was $500,000. And when COVID hit, we were starting to go for our venture capital round. And we presented everything. We got a buy-in for $750,000. One thing happened, our angel, there was an issue. He didn't want to go down in his shares so that we could get the other funding in. We just couldn't come to an agreement. So I ended up leaving the company in December of last year. I had worked my butt off for 3 years, but I have to take I learned so much from that I have carried those skills with me into my next passage in life. But I mean, you can also go and you can completely fail if you've taken out money. So I'm just saying, however, whether you can start a business with zero and you can do bootstrapping, you can start with a $5,000 loan, or you can go, high up. But just know that there is always that failure for risk. So you have to have that mentality. There are always obstacles. There are always things coming in. But if you're an entrepreneur, you always see the glass half full. And you always know that you will be able to find a way. Where there's a will, there is a way, and we will get through this. One thing about entrepreneurship, it can be very lonely. You're making decisions, especially when I had the bakery. My husband had his own job, and yes, I had him for support, but he wasn't in those everyday things with me. And what I suggest people do, I said, you've got 5 fingers. You've got your accountant, you've got your attorney, accountant, attorney. I would say I had 3 other people that were in the, they were entrepreneurs and they were mentors. They were my go-to people. And we talked every week just because I kept in touch with them. And it was great to bounce ideas off with them. Also, you can go to like the Women's Business Center, the SBDC at URI. All of those places have networking events so that you're not alone. You need the environment and you need to meet with people and talk about things. Financial insecurity. Okay, Christy spoke from Painted Karma. They jumped in head on. I jumped in, I left my full-time job. My husband still had his job, but we didn't have that salary coming in. So a lot of people, you know, you don't have that corporate salary. Some people don't have the health benefits. You don't have the 401k. So there's a lot of things to think about in entrepreneurship because things change. And it takes a long time to build those things up. And it's definitely long hours. I can tell you that when I started, for the first 90 days of the bakery, I worked 16-hour days because I went in with my bakers. I had 2 bakers. I went in with them every day. I wanted to make sure that everything was flowing. It wasn't until I ended up going to for my doctor's checkup on day 91, and she's like, "Oh my gosh, if you lose any more weight." I was eating, but it was the stress. She's like, "You have to change something. You can't keep doing this." But of course, you just want to succeed, and you're like, "Oh, no, no." So there are long hours, but I'm a big proponent now of teaching people a little bit more work-life balance because you need it to keep going. So there's some great pros and there's some great cons, and I hope you still all want to be entrepreneurs after all that. No. So, so what do you have to work with? So core competencies. Let's talk about what kind of industry experience do you have? What do you bring into the table? Let's use it because you probably have some great experience. Some people say to me, "Oh, I don't know how to." I'm like, yes, if you've managed people, if you've done data analytics, do you have computer skills? Are you a people person? I mean, everyone has skills that they bring from their backgrounds. What is your education? You may have, you may have some special certifications. I remember someone was doing training and facilitation in this group. And, you know, when consulting comes, there's always, even like project management, that's a great certification. If you are your PMI, if you're, you know, people can use that for consulting, but even if you're starting a business, you might be able to say to your clients, promote that. I have this certification. I mean, it's really, you can use those things. Your business experience, we're talking about that. You have budgeting experience, management experience, all of that will help you. And on the entrepreneurial side, do you have experience with startups? You may not have your own, but have you worked in a startup? I had a lady who came to me who wanted to start a coffee shop. And she had no exposure, and she had saved money. And I said to her, "I cannot let you start up this business until you go work in another coffee place, so you at least understand what it's like, and if you're going to put your money in this." And some people used to, like, whatever Mary said, great. She actually came back and saw me a year and a half later, said, "I've worked in 3 shops, Mary, and I really want to thank you for that. I learned how to do different things." And she has a very successful place in Rhode Island. So you may have a family member who has a startup. Talk to them about it. It may be a friend, but talk to other people who have experience, and maybe you can go work with them for a while. So that's just a great way to get some exposure. Okay, make an honest appraisal of your skills. This is really important in entrepreneurship. Know what your strengths are. What are you good at? Because you need to know that for sure. Know what your weaknesses are, because honestly, that's where you're going to have to get help. So I can do accounting. I've taken accounting in college, but you know what? I can't stand it. So, and I knew that for me to do my accounting, I could do my QuickBooks. That was great. I could do my entries, but for me to have a small bookkeeper come in and help me every month to reconcile, she could do it in 2 hours, and it probably would have taken me 10. So I could use my time better. So know where you need help, and have people either learn the skill and it may come easily to you, or have someone help you with that. Know what talents you possess and what experience do you have. And what I suggest, I literally say to people, take a piece of paper, put your cross mark, write strengths, weaknesses, talents, experience, do a self-inventory. It's really a great idea, and you can look at things. it's really good to do the honest appraisal of your skills. Okay, Audra. Okay, is your business idea viable? And this is so important. Is there a need for your business? And this is even if you're still in business and you're expanding, you know, is there a need for that next level? So I always say to people is if it's a product or a service, who are your clients? What is your niche going to be? How are you going to separate yourself from other people? For me, with Artisans List, for people who love old homes, where were they going to find all of these little pieces and doorknobs and hardware? You know, our idea came from my business partner had been an editor for Better Homes and Garden. And she used to know that in the back of the magazine, they have the resource where you can find everything. And she's like, why don't we just put this online and help people and have the vision? So that's where, you know, our idea came from. Will people pay for your product and service? So you may have an idea, but you actually think that people will pay for it. And if you're not sure, get a little focus group of friends and family and say, hey, and don't tell them you're thinking of starting a business. You might say, hey, would you pay for, well, we're talking about beekeeping. So maybe you're coming up with a different flavored honey or something. Ask people, would you pay for that? If so, how much? Also, you're going to do some comparison to, you know, what's out there in the marketplace when it comes to pricing. Have you done the necessary research? This is huge. I always, in the Providence Public Library, in the main one downtown, there's an incredible lady. She works in the research department. Her name's Ann Paulus. And Ann, if you go in there, she will help you find books to research in your industry. So there, I'm sure at URI there's resources also, but do some research about what's out there. And if you're interested in a special niche, look up some data. Can you obtain the necessary licenses and permits? This is huge, especially zoning wise. In the food industry, I can tell you, really important, but any kind of manufacturing, etc., contact the Secretary of State's office, your local town government, tell them I'm interested in opening this kind of business. Can you tell me what I need for licenses and permits? Really important that you do that before you sign any lease, especially if you're doing a brick and mortar or you're offering a service in the area. And do you have enough funds to get started and operate until you're making money? Okay, so some of you may decide that you're going to do something part-time. You may be doing something jumping in, feet in right away, full-time. How much money do you have saved up? You need to know, I have 6 months worth of living expenses, etc. So know what you have, and then you have to have your operational cash. And also, how much do you need for down payment if you're renting a place? I mean, all of that you just have to think about. Okay, Audra, now. Okay, so this leads into why you need a business plan. Okay, so your business plan, and a lot of people will say, oh, I don't want to write a business plan. I'm like, yeah, I know, but it's going to answer the questions of viability. It serves as a guide, and it really is a way to measure your success. Honestly, it is a roadmap. And I want you to think about your business as you're going on a road trip, okay? And so I now live in Cincinnati, so I'm going back to Rhode Island. And I'm driving down the road, and I'm like heading down Route 80, and this is going to be my direct path. Oh my gosh, there's a detour. Oh my gosh, something happened in my business. There's been a major problem. What am I going to do? Well, I have to take a detour. Okay, so if I have to turn a little, I probably put in my business plan some other ideas and ways that other markets that we could work with. So it is basically your roadmap, and it's not going to be a straight line, but it's really important that you put it out there. It also provides documentation for financing. A bank's going to look for 3 years of projections for you to get any kind of financing, but also the business plan. If you're writing one out, a full one, minimum 10 to 15 pages. Some people do 30, those get a little long. But there's also something you can do called the one page, it's the lean canvas, which is a starter, which is really good if you are creating, if you need an idea, or if you're already in business and you want to move to the next level, you can do the lean canvas business plan. You can look it up online and the templates there. So it's just a one pager. With our Artisans List, we were in the accelerator program, Mass Challenge. And one of my mentors, now we've been in business for 2 years, made us go back and do the lean canvas. And of course, I was the worst. I was like, oh, do I really have to do this? But we were going in a different direction. So it was very beneficial for us to put down everything. Okay, this is who our customer is. This is where we're going. So I definitely cannot say the how important it is to have your business plan. And as it says at the bottom, the business that fails to plan plans to fail. You have to have that plan, okay? So before investing in resources in your business, there's a few, I really would like you to carefully evaluate yourself. We need to analyze your business concept, so important. And after you've done that analysis, so key your business plan, your strengths, weaknesses, the page I showed you, are you ready and willing to be an entrepreneur? So are you still like super charged up and like, yes, let's go, this is it, then go for it. I can tell you all, having been on this journey for over 20 years, to me, I love it. It just fires me up. So what I would like to do now is just open it up to questions. One thing I would like to talk about are the resources in Rhode Island, okay? So you have the Center for Women in Enterprise, which is in Providence. It's, I know it's cweonline.org. You can go there for consulting. It's free consulting. You can make an appointment. There are classes that are free and at a low charge. The Small Business Development Council right there at URI. They have mentors all over the state. Wherever you live, you can meet with a business consultant and go through a class. The Veterans Business Outreach Center, if there's anyone on who's a veteran, that is attached to CWE, and they can help you. Same thing, counseling, classes. They can also help you with any funding, becoming certified as a veteran-owned business. So those sources are available. And the SBA.gov, the Small Business Administration, if you just go in and put sba.gov/RI, or Massachusetts, if any of you are in Massachusetts, you will find the resources there. And I don't know, Audra, are there any more slides?
No, so we'll definitely open it up to questions. My last ones are, and it's perfect timing because you were talking all about these resources. Next week, on next Wednesday, on June 2nd, we're going to have Josh Daly, who's with the Rhode Island Small Business Development Center. And once again, there's, regardless where you live, there's a small business development center. So Josh specializes in Rhode Island, but same sort of resources. And we're going to talk about some of resources that are national, no matter where you are, or specific to the state. So that'll be awesome. And then we have another one. And with Josh, we're also going to talk about the business model canvas, since that was another one that was highlighted. With on the 16th, we're going to have a gentleman, Lanre Ajakaye. He's a URI alum, and he's going to be talking about communicating your idea. And so I think that speaks a lot to what Mary was saying, which I really have to understand my idea And that's going to help with the confidence and the communications and being able to really show that vision.
Yeah,
So we
and
have some-
no, go ahead, Audra. I'm sorry.
No, I was going to jump to the questions. Go
Yeah,
ahead.
I was just looking at the questions. I love that you put Angel Co. for startups, etc. Celine. Yes, men are welcome at Center for Women in Enterprise. We love our men there. I used to say, I used to love it when men came in. So yes, that is open to men. Women's Business Center, yes. Whoever's in California, go to, I think it's wbc.org. There are women business centers in every state, and it just depends how many there are, depending on the population of the state. That and the Small Business Development Council, where Josh is coming in next week, they are all under the umbrella of the Small Business Administration. So yes, they are in every state. What does credit need to be in order to qualify for a business loan? Very good question. So credit, minimum, banks are looking for at least 650. But I will say that there are community development loans where they will work with you depending on where your credit is. And also, the Women's Business Center, when I was there, we started a microloan program, and we worked with people on an individual basis. So it all depends on how much you are asking for, if you have any collateral, and there's a lot of factors. I will tell you that maybe Josh will talk about it next week, but there's some good organizations too that have credit classes and different things if you do need to boost your credit score. I know the Women's Business Center does partner with some of the local banks for those classes also, and the SBDC does too. So he will probably talk about that. Maureen says, you mentioned the time frame of 3 years to break even. Is that average across all types of business? Yes, across all types of business, that is basically the standard. If you have a consultancy, yes, you probably would break even sooner because you don't have the upfront costs and you are most likely working out of your home. So yes, that is for sure. What resources for someone who's putting together a business plan for the first time? Oh, great question. I would go to bplans.com, and at bplans.com, they show you, these are actual business plans. And what I would do, go to the section, there's a tab that says sample business plans, click on that, and they're by category. So you might be in the fitness world, you might be in consultancy, you might be in construction, you might be in food. Look what area you fit into, read through and find at least 2 business plans that kind of fit your business. Then read through them, and then the one that really you feel most comfortable with, copy the whole thing and put it on a Word doc, the whole plan. Then I would go through, make another copy of that, and it'll have all the headers, like executive summary, et cetera, et cetera. Leave the headers, but delete everything that's written. And then you've got your other one that is theirs, it's still written, and start writing. But go back and look at theirs as a reference, because the one sample plans that are there are really good plans. So that's just a good way that I like to get people to start thinking about how to write their business plan. And you can also take classes at the Small Business Development Council and the Women's Business Center. They will take you through their 10-week classes. You go once a week and you can learn the plan. Okay. Is working with another solo entrepreneur essential? Do you recommend a timeline? No, you can work by yourself. I will tell you, partnership, it's interesting. My first business I did completely by myself. The second one, I had a partner. The first one, I thought that I would like a partner, but I never could find the right fit. Really important that you find someone who you're compatible with, skill set wise, personality wise, who has the same drive as you. The second time I went, when I had my business partner, Cindy, so she was an editor for Better Homes and Garden, extremely creative, not at all detail oriented, not at all business side. So that was me, and I did all the brand partnerships and the sales. But she was really good on the computer, and so she did a lot of our back end stuff with our WordPress, and we both did social media. So we had a really good partnership going. But it was really important, if you do work with someone, that you delineate what your job duties will be. And when it comes back to, we had to decide who had the final say. So if we decided you're heading this and you're heading that, and we both couldn't decide on something, the person who was heading it, we would generally go with what they were saying. So you've really got to define those things. Even when I had my bakery cafe, for the first year, we didn't have enough income to do a full salary for a manager to come in with us. So I ran the store Monday through Saturday, and my husband came in on Sundays and ran it for me. On Sundays, staff would come up to him and say, well, I want to do this. And he like, write Mary a note. So you've got to know who's in charge of what, just so if you've got that going on. The second question is, do you recommend a timeline? Does one manage a pivot point when you realize the business idea needs to change? How does one? Okay, so the timeline, I'm not quite understanding that. Roberta, can you unmute for a second? Explain that to me.
Hey, Mary, happy to. The timeline had to do with the working with another partner or solopreneur, but you answered that, I think.
Okay,
Yes.
perfect.
And then yes.
Yeah, then you said, how does one manage a pivot?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, so when the pivot, well, when you realize something's got to change, you really have to analyze, and then just think about, well, I usually come up with one or two scenarios. What would happen if it happened this way, or what would happen this way? Sometimes you can collect data. That's why I say research is good too. You can see what trends are out there in the marketplace. And sometimes you just have to go with your vision and your gut instinct and say, okay, we're going to go with this. And when I was talking before about risk, you can limit your risk. So you say, okay, I'm going to go this way. And if this doesn't work, what are we losing? You know, because sometimes you just have to go with it and see if it's going to work, and you just never know. B plans. It's B like boy, Max. Okay, B like boy. Bplans.com. Borrowing money from 401k. Okay, I strongly say don't do this, because here's the deal. As an entrepreneur, you're generally taking a leap, and if you're going to get taxed on the money coming out of the 401k. It's probably going to be a pretty hefty penalty. I don't know what your 401k is, but I always say try not to use that, because that is your retirement fund. And I always say, if you can stay away from that, do. But that is something too, that if you're talking to a banker, you might, talk to them about, because you can use that also, your 401k, as part of your collateral for a loan. Okay. B plans, Audra, thank you for that. Despite having an academic background, I tend to focus on what I haven't done more than what I have. When is the right time to jump into a business? Okay. Well, Logan, I just think that you have to decide that you're ready to go. Remember, I said do the chart with your strengths, your weaknesses, etc. Do that. Logan, I would also think about what do you have to gain and what do you have to lose? You know, do you have a backup? You might do this part-time in the beginning, you know, or you could still work your full-time job and create your business plan and do all of that, and then decide if it's a viable business. That might be a way that I would say to take your first step. Before you launch, write out everything, get the idea, make sure you have a clear vision, know that financially it will work for you, and then jump into it. I would also recommend you go and meet with someone at one of the resource centers, and they can help walk you through some steps. If I start to sell something online on a small scale, may that be done legally without collecting taxes? Are there minimum limits of reporting income? Claire, when we started in Rhode Island with our e-commerce, Rhode Island was not charging tax, but they now do. So I think that's something that you need to check with people, check with the state, but you will, you say, are there minimum limits of reporting income gained this way? No. When you have a business, you basically have to maintain, you know, what you're gaining. I don't know, Claire, if you're talking about maybe doing like buy and sell on eBay, or you're looking at another marketplace like Etsy. But I will always say, if you are doing business from a tax standpoint, the gain, Rhode Island's a stickler on it. Make sure when you set up your bank account for your business, even if you're a sole proprietor, so that means that you're using your social security number as a small business owner, all of your taxes, put in the savings account, like open a checking account and have a savings so that your taxes are separate, so you don't use that income to operate the business. That's just a good thing. How do you deal with an industry with a lot of snobbery, art dealing, when you have degrees in law and HR management, though you may have grown up around the artists and seeing the art being created? Well, I would be honest to say, if you have a degree in law or HR, that you are, you know, college educated, you could say you're an art connoisseur. And I would just explain, write a story of who you are. If you go on, you can see Artisans List, our story. And we just talked about how we grew up in old homes, and it just kind of crafts our story. And our experience was woven into the story. So everything on social media, or even if you have a landing page, you're crafting your story. I think that there's a way that you can create and put something in. And maybe you take in some kind of a course or a certification at RISD on art. Maybe there's something that you can get, and that helps with the art world. Look at what people look for in art dealing. I would check, see if there's any kind of certification you can get, if it would help.
This may also be that place where you add that partner in, if it made sense to you.
That's a great idea, Audra. Yeah.
All right, so we'll have Logan's as our last question, and then we're going to close out.
Okay, do you think there are benefits to pursuing additional related education concurrently with starting a business rather than waiting until you've completed further education? Absolutely. If there's something that you think is going to help you and you're really dead set that you want to start working, definitely add that in. And there's a lot of free courses online too. And the others say, Logan, I will, let me think about some courses. I'll get your email, and I will think about some places I could send you to look for entrepreneurship let me know what your industry is. And the other thing is, that's like Audra said, where a business partner might come in. Find that piece to complement you if it works. So I just want to say thank you, all of you. I just love educating. So I hope that I provided some good resources for you today.
And a big thank you